Peace, good evening. I'd like to welcome you back to another edition of the Foul Playland. As always, I am Sir Foul Player of Brooklyn. On my new venture called Behold, Peep Game, which is what Behold means. Wanted to actually I should have called this part one, but I guess it's like the beginning of a series of videos. So I'll just leave it as is. But I'm gonna have to keep going back to this because again, with people that defend Democrats a lot, which is most of the panels that I enter, most of the channels that I talk to, for the most part, are not like political channels. I mean, I do listen to political channels, but they don't. Um, it's more of a information drive type of deal, and not open panels. A lot of the channels that I usually frequent here on YouTube, the app that I love and hate simultaneously. But a lot of the channels that actually, I should change the title of this video to open panel. A lot of the channels that I frequent on YouTube are from the YouTube boxing world. I'm a big time boxing fan. Not so much any longer because boxing's kind of getting whacked. But do excuse me while I change the title of this video because this is an open panel. And I want to make sure that if anybody wants to air their grievances, that they're welcome to. But unfortunately, too, I've been doing open panels quite frequently now that I know that I have 20 hours of allowance on StreamYard. The hell did... I don't know what I did here, but sorry, folks. Just getting my ducks in order. There we go. So for anybody who wants to come on and damn, I wish I knew how to change this screen here. Oh, I think I know. All right, there we go. Yeah, so for anybody who wants to contend any notions that I'm putting forward, a lot like they're more than welcome to come on to my panel. And I've been doing like I was saying earlier that a lot of the channels that I usually go onto their open panels are from the boxing YouTube arena. A lot of it, like channels that were once solely YouTube boxing channels, they seen what I seen as far as the sport goes, and that it's not as fun like to talk about any longer, and not much happening in the sport of boxing. But most of the boxers that I like are primarily American boxers, and most American boxers, at least the best ones, are so-called Black American boxers, Moors of America, if you will. And with covering boxing content is very tribalized. It's very racialized, to put it plainly. A lot of people that like are supporters of a certain boxer, if that boxer is a countryman of that fan group on YouTube, if that boxer has a rival, a lot of times, like say if a boxer's like Mexican, like so the Mexican boxing fans on YouTube, it's very commonplace to see them saying racist stuff about a rival who's of, like, say, so-called Black American ethnicity. And that's like the just to give you a lay of the land of like how YouTube boxing discourse happens. And I always come from the perspective that a lot of the American Black boxers were unheralded. A lot of them weren't getting enough props, and that's been throughout the history of boxing, as you know, that's no secret. And a lot of these channels that I would listen to, and I still do, um, they came from that perspective too of kind of being a online presence for a lot of these American black boxers who are underrepresented. Like a lot of times, American black boxers have a lot of harder time of getting fights, of a lot of times at the target of racial attacks, if you will. So I come from that realm, but honestly, like I've probably been listening to YouTube for the better part of a decade or more. And if I had to pick a team of racial groups, if you will, like that I would listen to on YouTube, and that I was more like that I still am more aligned with in terms of boxing, it's definitely the American so-called black fan base. 1 second, people. And to wrap all this boxing stuff up, because it's not interesting at the end of the day. The A lot of these channels, like myself, started seeing that the sport has become like whack. It's boring. So, and also the whole world has gotten tribalized, whether that be through COVID, whether that be through hatred or affinity of Donald Trump. Thank you. The world has gotten tribalized, and a lot of these content creators have gotten tribalized too. The thing of it is, though, that a lot of these boxing content creators and many people like that are the loudest as far as so-called minority groups. And I'll put Puerto Ricans there too. Like a lot of Puerto Ricans that my countrymen that hate Trump are like above and beyond emotional when it comes to having a regular discussion about Trump. They'll just use slogans and like guilt tripping, and it's just hard to have any sort of discourse. But um, on YouTube, it's much as the same. I mean, and the reaction that I get from a lot of these content creators that were pretty chummy with me, like before the tribalization that started happening online. Um, Front on like giving like letting me come through on panels. A lot of times like they'll like censor me when I'm on the panels, try to give me like these crazy standards as to what's proper for me to say and not to say. um Give me rule, like try to like make me debate with one hand behind my back, interrupt me at a constant. And most times, honestly, like the bulk of it are from these same groups that I frequented before the tribalization, which are so-called black boxing content creators here on YouTube. Um, so, and again, it's not like these people talk boxing 90% of the time nowadays, like everybody else, like myself, are talking political stuff. Um, but one issue in terms of something that happened in recent history is the Fauci issue. Now, Fauci was the liberal darling. I mean, he was a god of the liberals. And under a time in which, again, like Joe Biden was according to the amount of votes that he received, Joe Biden was the most popular president in all time because he received the most votes all time in 2020. Um, you had Kamala Harris, who ran against Trump but lost. Um, you have Obama, and I would say, like, in from the COVID era, if there was somebody who held a God complex or a godly complex amongst the liberal left, it was definitely Anthony Fauci. And if you guys haven't heard, Anthony Fauci had to testify in front of the Senate, and he pled the fifth throughout the whole testimony, which I mean, I anticipated that he would do. Um, but the more revealing part, or the part that has been revealed to the American public and the world throughout, is that a lot of the opinions that Dr. Fauci had behind closed doors were far different than when he was propagating to the public. And this is also, you have to compound that with the fact that, again, I mean, there weren't many people that I know that were effing with Fauci, in terms of like people that identify him. Like, I'll have some people like the boxing scholar. Like, I've asked him if he's taking the jab. Not that I give a shit that much. I mean, except for the sense of trying to prove a point in the immediate sense. But when you ask them, most times, to a lot of these content creators or people that come onto my panels, they'll actually admit to having to take the shot for their job or whatever excuse, but that they didn't really want to do it. Like, they were reluctant to do it. But even then, in spite of the fact that they were reluctant to do it, and also in spite of recent revelations that Dr. Fauci has put out there, in that the him hyping up the COVID, him knowing the truth about the effectiveness of the jab, that it really wasn't effective like that. In spite of these recent revelations, a lot of these same channels, content creators, so-called black people, honestly, like many times, like so-called minorities, if you want to throw Puerto Ricans into the fray, fine, are still caping for Anthony Fauci very hard in 2026. And again, I mean, like, I'm having open panels regarding the subject, and nobody pulls up, with the exception that people that will agree with me. A lot of these same people that front, like, that won't let me onto their panels, even though they're very liberal as far as giving their with who comes onto their panel. A lot of these people that will disagree with me, like, at every turn, will front on coming onto my panel. And it's not like I'm going to try to silence anybody. That's not what I'm doing. I mean, I don't like for people to start to filibuster on a YouTube channel, because I ain't no politician. If you're going to just blow hot air nonsense, run on like long ass sentences, yeah, like, it makes for boring content, and I don't want to hear that shit. Or if you want to give long answers about feelings and guilt tripping, like, nobody's trying to hear that shit. It's it's try to give as much of the truth as possible, and that's that. But I'm a full constitutionalist, as far as the rights that it does give the populace, and the First Amendment, freedom of speech. I can't stand when anybody tries to infringe on that. And again, I mean, the biggest infringers, and as far as to me personally, are a lot of people that so-called minorities that cape for the Democratic slave masters on the Democrat plantation, unfortunately. And a lot of like, my vitriol in many cases recently has been rising. And a lot of it has to do, frankly, with this COVID issue, particularly because it went from, and this is at the behest in large part of Dr. Fauci. We weren't even allowed to speak about COVID here on YouTube. At the peak of the COVID era, unless you were fear mongering, unless you were, if you had any doubts regarding the efficacy of the vaccine, if you had any doubts of, of lockdowns, anything that like the liberal left lunatics were putting forward. Liberal left lunatics were very gun-ho about lockdowns. That's why they still have some sort of ill will towards the state of Florida, which was publicly anti-lockdown. Liberals have the communal wafer of liberal and democratic plantation servants is the COVID jab. And again, the most hesitant community or population in the United States regarding the COVID vaccine were so-called Black American people. Yet, and I mean, a lot of them, when they're honest, I mean, I know the boxing scholar must have taken it, and I feel for that. I don't take that as something that I'll throw in his face. but he won't admit to it, of course. Like, I mean, when I've asked him outright, and but if he's not admitting to it, chances are that he was reluctant in taking it, and I don't blame him. But in spite of the recent revelations, I mean, these people still want to be the attack dogs of the Democratic plantation slave masters when it comes to critiquing that party. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's very funky to see. I mean, like, how many of our rights were trampled during this era? And a lot of times, like, I'll get the same thing, like, where, it's like, and unfortunately, I have to use my brother, the boxing scholar, as the example or the perpetrator of the example that I'm about to give. But, like, they'll be like, oh, well, you want to talk about the past and keep bringing up Biden. Now that, Fauci is the issue that, literally, like, these revelations were made last week regarding the fact that Fauci was lying throughout the whole COVID era and up until recently. Now they don't want you to talk about Fauci. Oh, you're talking about the past, like, for bringing up Fauci. Like, these people don't see the very succinct possibility that should a Democrat win office in 2028, and should there be a little outbreak of any sort of flu, that they're going to be pumping the same kind of mandates once again, during a time in which a Democrat is sitting in office. Also, too, I mean, a lot of the revelations that have been happening, which, again, I already knew this, but it had to be revealed to the morons that still idolize Dr. Fauci, or the Democratic defenders that really don't want to know the truth. The COVID virus actually came from a lab in Wuhan, China. I mean, again, you were censored vigorously for saying these things just a couple of years ago, where now it's actually revealed that Fauci was not only financing that lab in Wuhan, China, under the Obama era. Like, they started outsourcing the experimenting on these vaccines to make them more dangerous, and that one of these vaccines, one of these diseases, COVID-19. If I said vaccine earlier, my pardon self. Actually came from one of these labs that were funded by these dark programs, like with money from places like USAID. And Fauci knew all this. Fauci was journaling this in his diary, probably in an effort to make a book in the future, and, like, is taking all these notes. But Fauci's documenting this, very thoroughly. But then he's also getting in line with the mainstream media, and probably coercing the mainstream media into downplaying the fact that the virus was was coming from the Wuhan lab, and pushing the lie that it was coming from these wet markets in China. Now we know that was all a bunch of shit, And again, I mean, like, when I would try to bring these things up, during the COVID era, everybody was an expert, and everybody's level of expertise, who were contending against anybody who had any doubts about the vaccine or about the virus. All these people became experts by watching a bunch of mainstream media television and regurgitating facts that were pumped to them at a constant. But now, I mean, like, if Sir File Plaisky wants to bring it up in 2026, on the heels of the fact that Fauci admitted to the fact that this was all a bunch of BS, and or that the much of what happened under the COVID era was a bunch of BS. You have smooth brain moron Democrat defense dogs that will tell you, well, talking about Fauci's like past tense, inflation is high. Like, meanwhile, these people don't know how to like, they don't know the first thing about inflation, but they just heard that in the news, so they'll run with it, like, and then act like you're not an expert, but they're the expert just for bringing it up. Meanwhile, like, without knowing anything about inflation at all. But it's what we're dealing with. I mean, like, and again, I mean, this is going to be the first of many videos, and again, it really like is frustrating conversation, like, or frustrating set of circumstances when people won't contend any of these things. Like, I know a lot of people like that have, like my brother Marky Dan, he'll have a video locked and loaded, like ready to go, like on one date. And when something like this happens, like that makes the Democrats look bad, like a Fauci being called out for being the scumbag that he is, they'll put off like live streaming, like the boxing scholar will front like he has a different set of rules where he's making open panels only for so-called black people. And it's because if MF like myself and ends up pulling up, it's hard to give me your emotional bullshit and try to make it as a sort of talking point. But again, I mean, like, I'm going to be covering this far more, like, in terms of Fauci. And it really sickens me that, unfortunately, so-called minorities are probably the loudest defenders of this man. I mean, and like, when specifically Black Americans had the highest hesitancy when it came to taking vaccines, especially new vaccines. These are people that a community that was subjugated to the stories like the Tuskegee experiment. And I mean, if you have them tell it, like, they'll tell you that this happened because the pilots that were subjected to the experimental viruses that were administered to them under the Tuskegee experiment were the victims of these experiments because of the color of their skin, which I agree wholeheartedly, 100% true. But I mean, also looking at the history of that, like, there was so-called Black women that were actually administering these viruses to the Tuskegee Airmen, but it's also something that we don't hone in on, because it knocks you down a peg from the victim Olympics. Also, I mean, this is a side fact though, but I think one of the women that helped develop the COVID-19 vaccine was also a so-called Black woman doctor. I forget her name. I mean, I know she has a like a slang name that they address her by, but I don't know her full name. But she's probably a little bit older than me, like, and probably a smart woman. But a lot of times, again, like, they get our own people to be the spokesperson or the symbolic person that they put out there when they're setting these traps up for us. I don't know if you guys remember, like, there was a so-called Black nurse who was the first woman that publicly received the vaccine. Give me 1 second. And I bring that up because I totally subscribe to the notion that the powers that be, they do play the symbolism game, and they'll always try to put a Moorish American or descendant of Moorish Americans to be the crash dummies for a lot of these things. Again, like, unfortunately, the descendants of Moorish Americans are the crash test dummies when it comes to being the guard dogs of these issues that may give the impression that the Democrat plantation is the place where it's not at. Damn, what the hell's happening here? Pardon self, my peoples. Yeah, I may switch locations because my stream's acting funky. If anybody and I have 4 people that are here now, like I mean, like if my shit is loading up on your end, do let me know or comment too, man. I have too many people that are on bird time. I mean, like that ear hustle, like hold on, making putting out in my comments too that this is an open panel. And again, I mean, like I've been doing open panels quite frequently of late, but people are on sucker time when it comes to contending these things. I mean, like people, if it were some story or overblown news story about gas going up, people will all of a sudden become gas experts, and they'll be more than willing to come through on these live streams. But again, like right now, the Democrats are looking really bad, and none of that's happening. I mean, if I remember any points about this, I'll bring them up. I mean, I've had a really long day too, and I'm gonna try to keep this to under an hour, particularly if nobody pulls up. But in terms of the midterms, I mean, like, and in terms of like a general consensus of where this country may head, the midterms is something that a lot of people politically try to plan out, especially with things being so tribal. Like, I mean, most of these people that are vaccine sufferers that are still Democratic defense dogs, if you left it up to them, they'll have any candidate besides Trump or a Republican. Like, it could be a communist, socialist, but right now we're leading into the elections, and this is the real election season. July to November is like where you actually remember much of what happened when you actually enter the voting booth. You're remembering a lot of what happened from the middle of summer up into November. Most of the stuff that you're voting on is like September to November issues, though, to be honest. But again, I mean, in spite of the Iran war, which is probably the biggest thing that may be used against Trump and his party leading up to the midterm elections, what are Americans seeing right now? I mean, there's been a, whether you don't like it or not, like, I mean, there's been a real propagation of the American spirit that happened during the World Cup. And even before that, I mean, like the fact that we're celebrating the 250th year of the United States, a lot of people are into that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm not gonna front, like during the World Cup, like they would show a lot of videos on YouTube of people from foreign countries, especially Europe, that were talking about their experiences while visiting the United States for the World Cup and how great they thought that the American people were, but also how great the land of America is, which it is, man. I mean, there's no better country than America. But this is all happening, of course, under the Trump administration. I mean, I don't think a lot of people would say the same under a Biden administration. If you go to a game in Texas, like under a wide open border crisis, you'd probably have to deal with that. I mean, these games, like when New York is tempering down a lot more than peak open border era. I mean, in peak open border era, there were tons of like additional goons that were running around New York City, which were unaccounted for. I mean, if they got arrested, good luck, trying to track one down. Like, because the district attorneys and the NYPD was a lot of times playing coverage for them. If you were a victim at the hands of, one of these for instance, Venezuelan migrants that entered America during the wide open Biden border. Um, you know, that was pretty much a lack of an expectation of any justice being played on your behalf. You know, you would get a cover up happening at the hands of police and the district attorneys. So imagine, a foreigner visiting America or New York City during that time. I mean, they're gonna have nothing good to say. But a lot of these games were happening in Kansas City and Texas, and most people from Europe. Again, I mean, like if you don't know Europe right now, with the situation that's happening in Spain, where pretty much a Biden border happening in Europe at the behest of the Spanish government's idiocy. Um, the fact that you go to Europe and it's nothing but large populations of African and Arabic men everywhere that speak not one European language, that have nothing to contribute to the European culture, that are just lingering around all day. They're not working Uber Eats, or they're not picking fruit. They're not going there for a better life. They're going there to leech and to manhandle your women. And they come to the United States and they don't see any of that stuff. But again, I mean, like, in spite of, and I have many complaints about the Trump administration. I don't like the fact that this Iran war is used as an excuse to lift up the prices of gas. I don't like the relationship that the United States, in spite of the fact that we have a relationship with that country over there in the Middle East, um, and that's been almost every president. I would have loved for Trump to be the president that says we no longer have that relationship any longer. Um, but every like the Joe Biden administration gave 4 times more money than what Trump did to that country over there, in spite of the fact that they were conducting a genocide, according to some people. Um, but that's a pretty much a both party issue, in spite of the fact that I would like for Trump to cease that relationship. But I mean, most American people hopefully aren't dummies. I mean, like I can't take like what I see on YouTube, like people like my brother Reggie Owens, or the boxing scholar, um, or Mark Nash. I can't take like these people's viewpoints in terms of their politics to be the American public. I think when the American public, when it comes down to it, I mean, they're gonna remember, what happened under the Biden administration, how they were being constantly gaslit as to the mental acuity of Joe Biden, as to the state of the border, the fact that they were pushing mandates, whether you wanted them or not. Like many workplaces were pushing the mandates, and many of those corporations were being pressured by the government to push those mandates in the workplace. People are going to remember these things come the midterms. I mean, um, again, I mean, and you also have, in terms of the Democrat Party, having a somewhat of a takeover by socialists, or to put it plainly, communists. These are socialists that, when you go back onto their internet history, you know, um, don't shy away from the fact that they have a strong affinity for communist thinkers and for pushing a communist agenda. I mean, and in America, I mean, like maybe the young people who many times are uninformed, but a lot of young people, like right now, many times don't have shit to fight for. Many young people are um, sort of have a lot of the thinking, such as the so-called minorities do. A lot of so-called minorities, like they want to blow shit up, tear everything down, like because things aren't working out for them, and any sort of change, like to spite whoever's in power, is like their political stance. I'm not knocking it that hard. I mean, because I was the same way. You know, but if a lot of times, these people could think that they're inconveniencing white people or who they think is the god of white man, Trump, they'll just rock with it, and they'll align themselves with socialists. They'll align themselves with foreigners. They'll align themselves with Iran. They'll align themselves with defending China, to spite, white people or to spite Trump. Give me 1 second. I got a cat battle royale happening. Who's fighting? Get the fuck out. Yeah. Pardon self. Pardon self. Yeah, I can't believe nobody's commenting too. It helps. It helps Yabrowski in terms of getting the algorithm to show a brother love. And I get it. I mean, like, I may say things that are not appeasing to the Democrat dog defenders. Sorry, I'm over here breaking up cat fights. And I may say things that are not pleasing to the ears of the plantation, the Democrat plantation defense dogs. But there's tons of channels, especially so-called minority channels, and I'm a so-called minority myself. But there's tons of channels that are gonna cry about Trump at a constant. Play blind when things look bad for a Democrat. Become science experts by regurgitating information that Fauci told them, and want to beat you up if you disagree with their God, Fauci. There's tons of channels that do just that. There's not many so-called minority channels by people that grew up in the hood like myself that will not try to stop you from speaking and try to cry about my emotional feelings on a topic. You have bad shit to say about Trump. I mean, you're more than welcome to. I mean, but I'm not here as a solely defending Trump kind of time either. Like, at the end of the day, I mean, like, I think that all politicians are bad. I think that none of the political parties are really out for my best interest. I also don't vote, but I'm also very aware of the fact that the people who, or the political party that's more than willing to take your rights under the COVID doctrines, were the Democrats that were gaslighting the American public as to what was happening in the border on the heels of a COVID, doctrine or indoctrination or guilt tripping people, like to not be allowed in groups, like, or like to, you can't see your grandmother like during COVID, but allowing people into the country unvetted, not checked for any sort of diseases, into the country during the COVID era. That was fine. Allowing BLM rallies and marches in the midst of the COVID era. I mean, like, these were they were tripping real hard on people going to churches during the COVID era, and for people being outside during the COVID era. But BLM riots were Gucci during the COVID era, and a lot of people like remember these things, and the gaslighting is still happening. I mean, like, there was just this weekend, like, I saw a interview. I'm gonna see if I can pull that up actually, of this this newscaster called Dana Bash, who was interviewing Dr. Fauci and basically cutting him off at every turn and trying not to hold. Damn, of course I can't bring this shit up. Trying not to hold. Oh, actually, I'm gonna see if I can do this shit from my phone. But getting real defensive when RFK Jr. was bringing up issues regarding the vaccine, issues regarding Fauci. Like this broad was cutting him up at every turn, or cutting him off at every turn. Using the fact that he has a speech impediment, because I don't know if you guys have heard Robert F. Kennedy Jr. speak. He sounds like he's like gasping for breath. He has some sort of condition that makes him speak that way. But she's using that condition to cut him off at every turn. Like the liberal media, the mainstream media in general, which is 95% all liberal, they're very combative when it comes to speaking with anybody associated with Trump, but they're extremely softball questions when it comes to Democrats and surface level issues. A lot of times it was proven that under the Biden administration, the mainstream media reporters actually had questions that they would give Biden ahead of time, and that Biden was basically reading off of a paper and calling on certain reporters, and he already knew what questions they were going to ask him, and he already had the answers written out. I mean, this was noted many times. This was actually noted or caught by reporters early in the Biden administration. I mean, again, but this is politician and Biden that the mainstream media was telling you that was on top of his game. And the Democrat defense dogs will try to emotion you down from speaking about Fauci or Joe Biden in 2026. But again, going back to what my expectations are for the midterms, I mean, a lot of what could happen in the Iran war. Again, I've been wrong in my estimation as to how fast this war can end. But in terms of gas prices, for instance, I mean, like Trump will say that there's a deal in place, gas prices go down 20 cents, 30 cents sometimes. I live in New Jersey. I mean, it's not the cheapest gas, but it's way cheaper than New York. But right now in New Jersey, I think I just finished paying like $3.91 for gas, and that's 10 cents cheaper because I paid with cash. In New York, it's real expensive, but it's a little bit above $4. Now, under the Joe Biden administration, we had record high gas prices, and it was beyond, I think, 510 or some shit, 508. And the Trump administration, or Trump himself, they put out a message of, listen, we want big things to happen in America, and not like just social justice or fake social justice. Social justice for so-called black people by flooding their communities with migrant men from other countries, military age migrant men from other countries. Whereas the Trump administration, they're saying 0 people at the border coming in illegally. I want to if gas, a lot of the liberal left lunatics will make it seem like the world could exist without gas. Oh, we could replace windmills and electricity. Electricity and windmills are unreliable. You can't power the economy with electricity and windmills. Europe is stopping themselves from receiving any sort of gas by their own means. They don't drill nothing. They're only customers when it comes to gas. Trump is basically, without saying it, saying like, I'm gonna drill in America. I already got Venezuela's gas pretty much under my control for all intents and purposes, and that's gonna benefit Americans as well. Um, but the rest of the world is telling us that we don't need gas or fossil fuels. I'm telling America, as far as the MAGA agenda goes, that we're going to be drilling for gas right here. This past weekend too, I don't know if you guys saw that Trump actually put a Truth Social post out stating that they're lifting any sort of federal restrictions for the drilling of gas offshore in California, and I believe in the state of California itself too. California actually had um, drilling for oil, I think as recent as the 50s and 60s, in Los Angeles even. Now, do I think that California is going to start drilling for oil off the rip? No, I don't think they're going to drill for oil at all. But I mean, this is my theory, of course. I think that Trump should nationalize California's oil. I mean, and just as a message, I mean, you can nationalize a different state like Texas, but I wouldn't suggest that. Texas is already drilling for oil. You know, a Republican state, I wouldn't suggest nationalizing the gas of a Republican state because they're probably more than willing to drill for oil. But California, nationalizing California's gas would make a hell of a message, especially if that brings the prices of gas down. And, you know, many people, when it comes to the midterms that are upcoming, you know, are going to remember, Fauci and what may come of Fauci too. I mean, it's not like we know everything that there is to know of what he was doing behind the scenes. There could be more revelations made. Everybody who the Democrats are trying to prop up, with any sort of time, always ends up looking shittier and shittier. And I don't think that's the same with Trump. Because I mean, like, how much more bad because they try to make Trump look? How many more stupid cases could they bring in Trump's direction to where how much bad press that he gets from a constant mainstream media nonstop regurgitating the same talking points and the same fear mongering when it comes to MAGA or when it comes to Trump, where most people are tuning that shit out. Whether you hate Trump or not, I think most people are just starting to tune that stuff out. And they're going to be left with a choice. Like, do I align myself with these people that will gaslight me at every turn, who are more than happy to censor any sort of dissension with this mandate that was forced upon me a couple years ago, with bringing in these people to my community that are not of this community, and for that to be public policy. And if you have any sort of dissension regarding the topic, you'll be deemed an enemy. Or do I align myself with, if, say, Donald Trump ends the war in Iran this summer, and the prices of gas go down to $2, you think most people come midterms are going to vote against that? I mean, and that's not even factoring like the way that Democrats, with any sort of time that elapses, make themselves look more stupid and more gullible, more beholden to the liberal left lunatics that are in their party now by way of communists, like Mondami, like the Graham Plattner, the guy who was just toppled in Maine. I think I know Colorado got a radical left lunatic running for governor there. I think her name is Hung. People recall these things. Let me see if I'm going to see if I could go on my own link so I could share the the Robert Kennedy thing that, or I have a Fauci thing too that I have on my. Yeah, I'm gonna try to go for my old phone and see if I could present it that way. Pardon self. Give me 1 second while I pull this up. Oh, no, I don't think I could do this shit. Let me see if I can do this from my phone. I wish I knew. Hold on. All right. Don't mind the second picture. I just now realized that those are two different pictures. That's pretty dope. I just want to see if I could present something. No, I don't think I could. Let me see. Yeah, I think I'm asked out in terms of trying to present something via my phone. Yeah, I mean it's I wanted to get a highlight reel of many of the times that Fauci fronted, but I also wanted to play the Dana Bash interview on CNN with Robert Kennedy Jr. when she was cutting him off at every turn. Um, Unfortunately, for some stupid reason, I can't sign on to my Facebook, and that's kind of like the only way I know how to present things by sending myself a Facebook message and then opening up the link on my here on StreamYard. But again, too, like if there's one thing I will say, if this is the first time listening to me, or when it comes to technology, I suck. I don't know squat about technology at all. Limited to like reading emails or like the fact that I even know how to operate StreamYard, the little that I know how to operate StreamYard it's a miracle in itself. I hate technology for the most part. I never owned an iPhone in my life. The phone I just had up till recently was 4G, and I had that phone for a minute. Um, but I just hate anything to do with technology. I never downloaded a song in my whole life. I don't know squat like when it comes to tech. So if you want to be dazzled by a knowledge of how to operate things on the internet, or you may have come to the wrong channel. If you want to hear a real Negro um, giving his perspective, not on no bird time, and not to be, and for you not to be censored, and then you come to the right place. But with that, I'm almost at an hour now. Unfortunately, people were too pussy to pull up. People were even too pussy to comment. Um, and I think that's because of the nature of the topic at hand. But what are you gonna do? One monkey don't stop no show, and I'm gonna try to come through. Maybe tomorrow even. I don't have a long day. Maybe I'll pull up tomorrow and see if anybody's down to contend what I'm putting forward. But with that, I hope you guys have a wonderful Tuesday, the worst day of the week. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your evening. With that, thank you for stepping into the Foul Playland with me. As always, I am Sir Foul Player of Brooklyn on my new venture here on YouTube called Behold. Peace.